mustn't lose daylight. Time is of the essence. Make haste. There is absolutely no time to waste. Carpe diem delecte. Seize the day, beloved, for tomorrow is not promised. Move swiftly into the plan of God. Move swiftly into your future by making agreement with God's will. You simply don't know who or what is on the other side. Advancements await you and opportunities are looking for you, but it must begin today. The Apostle Paul urges us in Ephesians verses 16 and 17 of the 5th chapter to make the best use of our time because the days are evil, to not be foolish but understand what the will of the Lord is. Pastor Merritt understood what the will of the Lord was, and these were the sentiments that God birthed in Pastor Merritt when he heeded the voice of God calling him to plant this church. In 2010, Pastor Merritt understood, and in 2023, he still understands the preciousness of time. Sino nu tu quando? If not now, then when? You see, Pastor Merritt wasn't an older man, but he wasn't a young man either when he heard the Father calling him back to the city of Atlanta, away from his comforts, away from his years of ministry connections, away from his comfortable life, and away to a place called life. But Pastor Merritt understood that in order to use you, God will often take you out of your bosom of comforts and familiarity in order to fulfill the call he has placed on our lives. So, Pastor Merritt answered the call. He began in a way that most wouldn't. There was no initial team, there were no committed members, there was no book on how to do it, and there was no support funding. But he heard a word from the Lord, and he would be forced to build upon it. As this wise man of God stated on last week, God often talks about our future and rarely talks about our present, but hold on to the word. It will become flesh. It will become flesh. It will become flesh. Pastor Merritt would not only have to build it, he would have to do so quickly. It didn't matter that he had no outside financial support. It didn't matter that he had not lived in the city since college. It did not matter that there were no committed members. None of those factors mattered to God, so they couldn't matter to Pastor Merritt. What he did have was a word and an opportunity, a space of time to do what the Father had called him to do. To plant a church and to call it life, to find a church building, but God said it couldn't be a storefront. It had to be a church building. To lead a weekly Bible study and to preach until the Lord's people would come. He had a space of time to do what God asked him to do. This space was called now, and it carried with it beautiful opportunities. You see, yesterday he was too young, and tomorrow he would be too old, so the best time would be this day. As one great theologian, Dr. John Paul McGee, once said, time will never return in the same way you experienced it in a prior moment. Pastor Merritt could not return to the same way of thoughts he had in the moment prior to hearing the word from God. His attitude towards pastoring a body of believers, along with his mindset, would have to be rewired according to God's will and to fulfill God's purpose. Perhaps, if he had waited just 2 to 3 days, the initial members would have gone elsewhere. Perhaps, if he had taken his time and waited another year for confirmation from his friends, the property at 344 Candler Park Drive wouldn't have been available. Perhaps, if he had drug his feet, we wouldn't have been able to purchase the building you are sitting in here at 3243 Stone Road Southwest, or purchase the Life Plaza across the street, or burn the mortgage on that plaza a few years later. Today we learn from Pastor Merritt's decision to move quickly into the plan of God, to quickly make agreement with God's will, and to simply just do it. So today, please help me to celebrate this mighty man of God, our founder, our leader, our shepherd, Superintendent Dr. Terry